Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. More ruminations on our state of affairs as a human race. In my last video I talked about the Archontic overlay reality that we live in. And I thought to expand on this a little bit more in order to put things into a greater perspective so you can understand what's at stake for our future. One of the things that a lot of people talk about in relation to the coming future of the human race is this entire idea of transhumanism, where we all are able, well, at least the elites are all able to shed this carcass of flesh and download our consciousness, our minds, what have you, into a machine that can live forever. And this, in fact, is the goal of certain of these people and certain of the groups that are involved in the transhumanism idea. The lesser effect of all this, of course, is a lengthening of the human lifespan and things of this nature. Now, I cannot condemn the idea totally of looking into those areas that would seek to save people's lives and to improve the living of people into older age. Makes perfect sense. I don't think there are a lot of people who would be outraged at having a totally mechanical heart replace their defective regular heart, one that worked completely free of defect and what have you, to allow them to continue to live for the rest of their lives with that. So one cannot condemn the idea of looking at the things that can preserve, that can extend, and that can benefit human life down the road. But this whole notion of emerging with machines is, I think, way too overblown. First of all, we are not even at the point where we understand how the brain works completely. We don't know what dreams are. We don't know how thoughts are formed. We don't know so much about simply the mechanics of brain functioning, let alone the idea of consciousness. And even if you were to take the materialist reductionist approach and say that consciousness is simply the byproduct of chemical reactions within the brain and electronic signals via neuronal firing, then we still are no closer to understanding what that is, how it comes about, how it arises, and how it manifests itself. So we're so far removed from understanding the very nature of the fundamentalness of what it means to be human to even approach the idea of this singularity of the merging of man and machine. So I think that entire thing is way beyond any time frame that we can consider. Because if we don't understand a thing, there's no way that we can possibly put that thing into a box, because we have to understand how it operates first. Now, I do not accept the reductionist materialist point of view that consciousness is simply the byproduct of chemical and electrical signals within the brain or anywhere else in the physical body for that matter. I think that consciousness extends beyond the body. And in fact, I believe in the idea of the collective consciousness of humanity, that all of our consciousness as individuals are part of the greater consciousness of all conscious beings. And that this explains the reality of psychic powers and things of this nature, that we simply have a facility to access that area. It's been called by different people many different things over the ages, but nonetheless I believe it is a reality. Now, what we see in the tremendous forces that are arrayed against us every day is a crushing burden to our spirit. Now, I use the term spirit in relation to our desire to be uplifting in our consciousness. And I think every human being, except for those that might be incredibly damaged, psychopaths and what have you, have a desire for an uplifting consciousness, a consciousness that seeks to move upward and to grasp things that are greater than ourselves. And one of the main reasons and one of the main ways that we go about doing that is through the expression of our imagination. Our imagination and its expression in creative forms that seek to answer questions that relate to humanity and our fundamental nature and how we strive to be better as individuals and people. And the forces that are at work within the world today, whether they be the very human elite people who are putting onerous burdens of predatory capitalism upon us and crushing the life out of us through draining us of all of our material goods, putting stress on us, all the way to the most arcane, and that is the Archontic reality, which is designed to overlay our consciousness as it really is, with a synthetic variant of reality that shields us from what really is there, so that they can manipulate us, creating stress and discord. And this is the reason why you have seen the rise of various groups within this community, and Christopher Knowles has talked about this quite a bit on his blog and on the Secret Sun Facebook page as well, so I would suggest that you check them out, and I'll put a link here for those as well. The rise of such groups as the New Atheists and the very militant skeptic organizations, which I have noted before, have been less inclined to attack organized fundamental religion than they have to attacking alternative forms of thinking, which seek to go around that overlaying Archontic reality that we have been put into, that we have been enfolded by from the Archons, from the machine intelligence. And by using alternative forms of thinking and alternative ideology and alternative forms of what you might call religion, which would include mysticism and meditation and trying to access that consciousness that lies outside of us in order to uplift ourselves to something that is better, so that we can feel more connected with humanity around us and reject the notion of this rigid, logical machine structure and decide that there are things that are greater than what we are being presented. And we can get out of the mindset that is being poured upon us, of the constant stress and strain designed to tamper and tamp down our imaginations, our creative spirit, our consciousness expanding beyond our bodies. I'm not talking about going out and doing drugs and all these sorts of things. They can be useful tools if you know how you're using them and if you use them correctly. I'm just talking about the everyday coming to terms with who you are as an individual human being and where you stand within the entirety of humanity, and realize that we are not separate beings. We are connected intimately through our consciousness. And the Archontic reality and the reality of the human world, which is much a tool of the Archontic reality as anything else, are designed to crush our spirits. We are in a time right now, some call, the end of the ages and that sort of thing. You can use whatever terms you want. The degraded Iron Age, where everything is falling apart and even the reality is hiccuping around us, where we see ludicrousness, as I pointed out in the last video, and insanity, etc. So that we can catch glimpses and flashes of the lunacy of what we're presented. Can we then take the next step and realize that there is a greater reality outside of this box that we've been placed in, and work to try to understand that, and work to try to use our imagination, our creativity, and the very essence of what makes us human to strive to that greater knowledge, and to get out of the box that we have been placed in. And I'm not saying that there are not very real concerns here either. So don't think this is just a hippy-dippy notion of trying to transcend our reality of space and time. It's a very real transcendence on the one hand, but it's not a rejection of what we're faced with every day. I mean, we all have to pay bills. We all have to live within the society that we're in. We have to buy things, we have to eat, we have to do all of these things. Gravity still works on you. You can't just go outside and fly. There may be a time when you can do that, but it's not now. And you can't just reject the Archontic overlay, because it does have very real implications for your life. Just as you cannot reject the very human tools of the Archons and their suppression of you and their oppression of you, because that is very real. You know, you lose your job, you lose your home, you know, you don't have anything to eat, you suffer the depredations of the depression, the recession, and all the other things that are going on in the quote-unquote real world around us. Those are very real things, and we have to stay focused on them as well. But here's the thing. You have a conscious reality which you can try to use your conscious mind, your thinking mind, your rational, logical side of things, to try and weave your way through all of the various maze-like things that are put in front of you by the oppressive human tools of the Archons and the Archontic reality that we're being faced with, and live your life as a human being in that world. But at the same time, you have a subconscious, you have an imagination, you have something that you can totally separate, in some cases, if you work at it, from your conscious reality. And that is what you need to grasp and seek to transcend where we are, and to realize the connectedness between all of us, and to realize that we are not simply who we are. We are much greater and much more. And by utilizing your imagination and by realizing that you can extend beyond yourself to come to connection with other people through our subconscious, through our creativity, through the very essence of what we are as humans, that we can escape the trap of being depressed by what we have to deal with during the real world day. But this doesn't have to happen in dreams. It can happen anytime you choose to express it. Just take some time to separate yourself from that and get in touch with your subconscious. Get in touch with your imagination and reach out from yourself and see what you find. Because this is the way I think that we can navigate through the deadly terrain that we are presented with every day, whether it be the real world of the oppressive human governments and all of the things that are being put upon us from an economic point of view and everything else, to the Archontic reality that we have to deal with, and the lunacy and the craziness that we have to deal with, all of which would crush anybody's spirit and seek to damage or take away our imagination, our right to think free, our right to expand beyond ourselves, our right to explore the very realms of our own consciousness. So work to tap your imagination, your subconscious, and use that as a tool to get away from the oppressiveness and to come to terms with who you are in the vast realm of humanity, and indeed in the vast realm of all of conscious beings everywhere. We all touch, we all connect, and we are all one. And that's not a hippy-dippy thing. I think it's a very real reality. But in contrary to the notion that we can just simply transcend or transform our own reality into whatever we want. That is not what I'm saying at all. There is a very real physical thing. If someone punches me, I feel pain. If someone shoots me, I could die. Very real. You know, the world that we live in is very real. You have to accept that as a reality, and you have to weave your way through it. And you have to be expectant of the pitfalls. You have to be aware of the traps. You have to know how to go through that. And it is very real, and it has to be something that is a focus of your conscious mind. And that is why I do all of the other videos that I do. When I talk about very real economic problems and very real political problems and things of this nature, because those are real. They have an impact in your life and in the lives of people you know and love. But what I'm saying is that there is another level of your consciousness that can be free of that. And that is the idea behind this. To get in touch with your imagination, your creativity, and extend yourselves beyond the bounds of yourself. And see where it leads you. Because in that way, you can escape some of the oppressiveness, some of the overwhelming depression that might come upon you. And you might be surprised what you might find. And I think in that, there is a way for you to have an out, to see behind the curtain, to go beyond the veil, to understand what it is to be human, and also to realize that you are much more than simply the flesh and blood that make yourself up, and simply the neurons and the chemicals going through your brain. So what I'm saying is to try to have a day life, if you want to call it that, a real life, where your conscious mind is engaged and you are actively looking at and understanding the very real world that we live in, of physical reality, but also at the same time to have another life altogether, that of your unconscious. Now in the future, hopefully, when things are all said and done, if we are coming back in a vast great cycle and the world returns to some sense of normalcy that is not being controlled by the Archons, then you can integrate those both together and we can live in a world that is better. But right now it's not the case. So what I'm saying basically is to foster your imagination and see where it takes you. And understand that that is a very real world itself. Your subconscious mind, your imagination, your creativity is a very real world unto itself, and you need to nurture it and to foster it and to go there and use it to restructure your psyche from the assaults that we face every day, and to move yourself to uplifting forms of human empathy, compassion, and all of the goodness that humans can obtain. And I think it's a very positive thing and a positive prescription for humanity, especially in the very times we live right now. Thank you. Good day.